the National Guard deployed. Let's just show you what's happening here. It's people trying to breach the Capitol building. There is tear gas in the air. Russia hasn't de-escalated. It's ignored the West's request. Heading to the Syria border. And they're carrying out airstrikes. Mohammed and Ubaida still haven't found their loved ones. They're still going to school. They're still trying to get their education. We're reporting from the front lines. We're talking to all the soldiers here about the threat of escalation, finding out about the current situation right now. We've been embedded with the Ukrainian military overnight. This is an organised force that is well used to fighting in these trenches and holding these front lines. And that sounds a bit heavier than normal on the front lines. It's trench warfare. So you get there and you're in these trenches, and these are very active front lines. You know, you hear the gunfire, you hear the RPGs, and you speak to the soldiers and they tell you, oh, this is completely normal. This happens every single day. It won't be trench warfare. Were the worst case scenarios that have been predicted come true. And so in that sense, you really get a very up close view of just how vulnerable some of those frontline positions remain. They tell us as normal, the situation is fairly standard. You can see though, they say the fighting is happening every day. We're shown one of the lookout positions. The Russian-backed separatists are just a few hundred meters away, and the soldiers have seen signs of movement. How often do the Russian-backed separatists fire on this position?
Every day. Every day they fire in this position, all our positions.
Alexei's father, Dmytro Godzenko, was killed by a Russian mortar in 2016.
We got the same nicknames, Godzilla.
And
this is it.
Godzilla?
In Ukrainian, yeah.
Donetsk nearby, you can
How
see.
far to that front line?
Як далеко до лінії фронту?
Кілометр?
Maybe 1 kilometer.
So 1 kilometer to the Russian-backed separatist front line.
Они оттуда нас обстреливали.
And they shell in from that positions.
And with the escalation over the last couple of days, we've seen the bullet that came through the window of the children's centre.
Yep.
There is no words for that.
Our reporter Sara Firth is traveling with an American group involved with international aid agencies.
So we're currently here on the Polish border, and there is a humanitarian NGO mission that is going to be crossing the border into Ukraine to Lviv today. So a lot of these guys are doctors, paramedics.
Sara, good to see you. What is the feeling there right now?
Well, Alajan, look, when we were speaking a couple of weeks ago and reporting on the current tensions at the border, it was a very different situation. Then you had these de-escalation efforts that still continue today. But in the meantime, the situation on Ukraine's borders has changed quite drastically. Russia hasn't de-escalated. It's ignored the West's request for it to stop that escalation. And so you've had that military build-up continuing, and the warnings are pretty dire. The situation here has not changed for years, he tells us. Does he think the war will end soon? In November, Russian separatists shelled this area, destroying 25 houses. Only 5 people stayed.
Сильно боїмося, дуже боїмося. А де діватися? Ну де діться, щоб не боятися?
Треба підтримати, тому що більше нема нікого.
But Katerina says to me, don't ask too much about love. Here, a piece of bread makes sense, not love. This frontline village, not quite yet a ghost town, but a devastated one.
We can go live now to Ukraine and join our correspondent there, Sara Firth. Sara, thank you so much for joining us from Kiev this morning. Will you tell us exactly where you are?
I'm sat in the bomb shelter overnight. I heard the sound of very heavy artillery, and that continued sort of throughout the night. Svetlana, thank you for speaking to us. Your baby's name is?
Netan.
Netan, and 8 months old.
Yes, he's 8 months old, and we have another son here, 6 years old.
Okay, and how are you feeling right now?
Frustrating. We don't understand what we did to deserve this kind of situation, and especially for the kids. We don't know what will be tomorrow, and powerless. We have no choice. We are just here to survive.
This is the border point that's been operating in a purely volunteer effort with aid organisers and volunteers meeting Ukrainian civilians that have made that very difficult journey. The volunteer effort is just so important. I'm watching one volunteer now, Gavin from Britain. He is meeting volunteers. And actually, if you've got time, we'll just have a quick word with Gavin. Gavin, what are people telling you when they're arriving and they don't know what to do next?
Well, it's just a wide variety of circumstances. Grandmothers who've been through, sort of horrific kind of war-torn experiences are very stressed. I mean, we had 3 heart attacks last week. And so, we just try and comfort them as much as we can and try and solve their problems.
Thank you so much, Gavin. I can see, there's people arriving all the time that are, being met by the volunteers and being given this, not just logistical support with the onward journey, but emotional support as well.
Щось важливе, що світ мав би почути.
Is there anything you want the world to know right now, we ask? World, please, no more protracted diplomacy, Dennis says. That kind of diplomacy doesn't lead to anything good. Is it too late for diplomacy? It hasn't worked for 8 years, he answers bluntly. Enough diplomacy. Having faced Russian aggression for so many years, though the threat seems now greater than ever, these soldiers' motivation remains the same. They fight, they tell us, for their mothers, their sisters, their families, their territory, their home. Sara Firth, TRT World, Donbass Frontlines, Ukraine.